Witam wszystkich, moi drodzy. To są moje pierwsze kroki w grze DCS. Czy w ogóle odpalimy? Czy damy radę? Może być mało FPS-ów, bo wszystko jest na ultra. Zobaczymy. Najwyżej zmniejszymy ustawienia. Dobra, uwaga. Right Shift plus L.
With the electrical power now engaged, you can see that the heads-up display, or HUD, comes to life, as well as many instruments and cockpit lights. Before moving the aircraft, make sure that more than 3 minutes have elapsed in order to let the horizontal situation indicator gyro to align properly. Now that you have power, let's turn on the navigation lights by pressing right control and L.
Right control and L. Right control and L.
Next, let's close the canopy by pressing left control and C.
Close the canopy, czyli to, tak? Zamkniemy. Left control C.
Our next step is to start our two engines. Before you do so, make sure your throttle controller has a 0 power setting. Start the left engine by pressing right, Alt, and Home.
Right, Alt and Home. Right, Alt and... right, Alt and Home.
With the left engine started, press right control and Home to start the right engine.
Right control and Home.
Off the lower left corner of the TV display is the engine gauge, with needles marked 1 and 2 for the two engines.
Co jest?
When an engine is being started, one of the two green lights below the gauge will light. Once the light turns off, it indicates that the engine is ready for operation. In the lower left corner of the dash is an aircraft symbol that indicates the status of your flaps, landing gear, and air brake.
Okay.
Lower your flaps to the takeoff position by pressing left shift and F.
Left shift i F.
We're now ready to taxi, so slowly increase the throttles by moving your throttle control forward or pressing page up. To
Dobra.
reduce throttle, use your throttle
ster.
controller or press page down. To use the wheel brakes, press W. Start rolling forward and turn to the left of the taxiway ahead. Press Z to steer left and press X to steer right.
Dobra, uspokój się. Aha. ZX. Z. Czekaj. Joystickiem robię. Z to steer left, F to steer right. Press W. Czekaj, no czemu to pipczy? Moment. No i robię to. Czemu nie idzie dalej? Silniki masz wyłączone, brak obrotów, ale ja to włączyłem. Prawy i home. I lewy i home. Czemu nie słychać ich? Uspokój się. O, co? Co tu jest za napis? Aha. Mam. Dobra, mam. Break. Dobra, działają silniki. I teraz... Co dalej? Czekaj, bo to było to... ZW. Z i X. Bo nie chce mnie dalej wrzucić. Pewnie jakiś parking mamy, hamulec jakiś. Czekaj. Pełna moc. Miałeś jechać w lewo? Ale on nie jedzie, bo ma hamulec. Muszę znaleźć, gdzie jest ten hamulec. Który to jest? Parking jest na końcu przepustnicy. Nie działa. Zaraz się zapalę? Gdzie temperatura rośnie? O kurwa! Otwieraj! Otwieraj! Ja jebę. Wspaniałe to ogółem. Dobra, jeszcze raz. Briefing. To? Fly. Aha! Halo! Dobra, to się zamknę, aby. Weź P51 jest łatwiejszy. To cockpit engine starts procedure. Dobra, to chcę. Ja tam SU nie będę patrzył na SU. O!
Welcome to the cockpit.
Welcome, cockpit, no.
Today, we will take a detailed look at the Mustang cockpit. You can use mouse look mode to move your view around the cockpit. To turn mouse look mode on and off, press left Alt plus C. Throughout this lesson, pressing the spacebar key will initiate the next consecutive step once instructions for the current one are complete. Press the spacebar key when you are ready to begin. The cockpit is configured in a standard layout, with the instrument panel positioned on the front
Przynajmniej w ludzkim języku to jest.
control stick, a throttle quadrant on the left side, and various aircraft system controls on the left and right panels. With the exception of the flaps control handle, which is located in the bottom left corner of the cockpit, most of the indicators and controls are well organized and easy to read and reach.
Press and spin, okay.
Moving on to the instrument panel, the upper left corner houses the remote indicating compass. The compass unit is installed inside the left wing and transmits magnetic readings electrically to the cockpit indicator. Using a remote compass avoids the magnetic effects caused by armor plating around the cockpit, experienced by a standard magnetic compass. The remote indicating compass includes a heading needle, which shows the current heading, and a desired heading needle, which can be turned using the indicator knob to set a desired course reference on the indicator. To turn the knob, you can simply roll the mouse wheel over it.
Co następne?
To the right of the remote indicating compass is a standard clock. The winding knob can be used to set the time. Doing so requires pulling the knob out with the left mouse button, then rolling the mouse wheel over the knob to rotate it.
No.
The suction gauge indicates the amount of pressure in inches of mercury.
Suction, moi drodzy, ssanie.
Vacuum pressure is used by a number of vital instruments, including the flight indicator, bank and turn indicator, and the directional gyro. A suction reading above or below normal means the readings of these indicators are unreliable.
Dobra.
Next is the manifold pressure indicator. This is one of the primary instruments used in flight, and together with the tachometer or engine RPM indicator is your main reference of engine power. The manifold pressure indicator shows gas pressure inside the engine induction system prior to entering the cylinders. Like the suction gauge, the indication is in inches of mercury. Manifold pressure is set using the throttle handle, while engine RPM is set using the propeller control lever, also on the throttle quadrant. On the left side of the middle row of the instrument panel is the airspeed indicator, which shows an indicated airspeed in miles per hour, mph. The red line on the indicator marks the maximum permissible airspeed of 505 miles per hour. It's important to remember that maximum permissible indicated airspeed is reduced as altitude increases. For example, it is 400 mph at 20,000 feet and 300 mph at 30,000 feet. In the left center of the instrument panel is the directional gyro, which shows current heading. The instrument can be caged and the heading adjusted manually by pushing in and rotating the indicator knob. In the center right of the instrument panel is the flight indicator, which shows the aircraft's roll and pitch attitude relative to the horizon. The indicator is limited to 60 degrees in pitch and 100 degrees in roll.
To jest sztuczny horyzont, czy jak ten Gyro Horizon?
The caging knob in the lower right corner of the indicator. The horizon level can be adjusted vertically using the pitch adjust knob.
Dobra.
To the right of the flight indicator are two temperature gauges. The coolant temperature gauge above and the carburetor air temperature below. It's important to monitor these instruments in flight, as temperatures rising above normal may lead to serious engine problems,
coolant,
such
no
as
to wiadomo,
detonation and pre-ignition.
ale carb to jest karbunator, kto to jest? Co to jest za temperatura?
On the right side of the middle row of the instrument panel is the tachometer. This instrument indicates engine speed in revolutions per minute, RPM. The pilot controls engine speed using the propeller control lever on the throttle quadrant. A propeller governor system automatically adjusts propeller pitch angles to maintain the RPM set by the pilot. Typical RPM settings in flight will be between 1,800 and 3,000 RPM. Moving to the bottom row of the instrument panel, the left corner houses the altimeter. The altimeter shows barometric or pressure altitude using a 3-needle system. The shortest needle shows altitude in tens of thousands of feet, the middle needle in thousands of feet, and the longest needle in hundreds of feet. The indicator knob is used to adjust the sea level reference pressure in inches of mercury to ensure an accurate altitude reading over a desired location where the sea level air pressure is known. Next is the bank and turn indicator, primarily used to maintain coordinated flight and minimize side slip. The vertical needle of the instrument indicates turn rate, and the slip ball indicates side slip or side skid. In flight, the pilot maintains the ball's center by using stick and rudder controls or aileron and rudder trim. Flight trim is very sensitive to changes in engine power and airspeed, so constant attention must be paid to the bank and turn indicator in order to fly as efficiently as possible. To the right is the rate of climb indicator, which shows the climb rate in thousands of feet per minute.
Wznoszenie.
Further to the right is the accelerometer, or G meter. This indicator shows the G load factor experienced by the aircraft, as well as two additional needles that show the maximum and minimum G loads attained since the instrument was last reset. The instrument includes a reset button used to reset the needles to 0. Finally, on the very right is the engine gauge.
Co to jest ten blinker? Wygląda jakby usta się otwierały. Oxygen Flow Indicator.
And the fuel pressure gauge.
Przepływ powietrza.
Moving below the instrument panel, the engine control panel includes a number of important engine controls. These include Supercharger blower switch. Sets the supercharger to low, high, or automatic blower modes. Normally this should be set to auto. The dual light indicator lights up when the supercharger kicks into high blower mode. Fuel booster switch. Turns the fuel booster pumps on and off. Oil dilute switch. Used to dilute the oil with gasoline, which may be necessary when starting in cold temperatures. Starter switch. Used to turn the engine prior to ignition during startup. Primer switch. Used to feed fuel to the engine through the fuel primer system during startup. To the right are the two landing gear warning lights. These indicate safe or unsafe states of the landing gear. For example, the unsafe red light will be on if the gear doors are open, but the landing gear is unlocked. Adjacent to the landing gear warning light is the parking brake handle. Setting the parking brake requires the following steps. Pull out and hold the parking brake handle. Fully depress and release the brakes. Release the parking brake handle. Releasing the parking brake only requires a press of the brake pedals.
Co to?
On the right side below the instrument panel are the oxygen indicators, the oxygen flow indicator, and the oxygen pressure gauge. The oxygen flow indicator features a blinker that opens and closes as the pilot inhales and exhales on-demand oxygen. The oxygen pressure gauge shows the amount of oxygen remaining in the O2 tanks in pounds per square inch, PSI. A normal reading is 400 PSI.
Aby tam pół loka wsadził.
Just below the instrument panel is the front switch panel, which includes a variety of important controls. Ignition selector switch selects the left, right, or both magnetos to operate the engine ignition system. Cockpit light switch turns on and adjusts the cockpit floodlights. Horn silence button silences the AN/APS-13 rear warning radar alarm. Below the front switch panel is the fuel control panel. This includes the fuel shutoff valve, used to open and close the fuel flow, and the fuel selector valve, used to select the fuel tank used to feed the engine. Correct fuel tank selection is important in flight to maintain a balanced aircraft. To the right of the fuel control panel are the hydraulic pressure gauge and the landing gear fairing doors emergency release handle. The landing gear fairing doors emergency release handle can be used to release the hydraulic pressure and mechanical locks holding the gear doors closed. This will open the fairing doors and allow the landing gear to fall down under its own weight. Slight rolling of the aircraft from side to side can be used to ensure the gear locks in place prior to landing. The surface control lock is used to lock the control stick in place when the aircraft is parked. Left-clicking over the pin locks the stick in a forward position, which leaves the tail wheel unlocked and allows the aircraft to be towed and turned.
Dobra, to co? To robimy... on nam wytłumaczył... Engine start procedur, dawaj. Wszystko wiemy już. Dawaj. Fly. No. Go day.
Welcome to the startup lesson. Press the spacebar key to begin.
No.
The engine start sequence is not very complicated. We will move around the cockpit clockwise, starting on the left side to configure the aircraft for engine start. Let's begin with the flaps control handle, positioned to the rear bottom left side of the cockpit. For a normal takeoff, flaps are not usually lowered. However, 15 to 20 degrees of flaps can be used when a minimum run takeoff is required. Set the flaps control handle all the way up to the up position. To do this, you can either click and drag the handle with the mouse or press left shift plus F command repeatedly until it is all the way up. Note, the flaps won't actually come up until the engine is running and there is sufficient pressure in the hydraulic system to raise
Dobra,
it.
F.
Now set the carburetor induction system for normal operation by moving the cold air control handle all the way forward to the ram air position and the hot air control handle all the way forward to the normal position.
To the normal I to the normal. Aha. Dobra.
Next, set the coolant and oil radiator air control switches to the auto position for automatic operation of the coolant and oil radiator flap doors. To do so, left-click on the auto switch positions. Don't forget to close the switch covers after.
Left-click on the auto switch positions to the auto position for automatic operation.
Adjust the trim tabs to prepare for takeoff. Set rudder trim to 5 degrees right. Elevator trim to the left.
Set trim.
Aileron trim remains neutral.
5 degrees. Elevator neutral. Elevator neutral. 5.
On the throttle quadrant, ensure the propeller RPM lever marked P is set all the way forward to increase.
Kurwa, ciszej tam!
Set the throttle
Jezu, nie słyszę nic, czekaj.
forward from the full back position to slightly open the throttle butterfly valve and allow air to flow to the engine. If you don't have a throttle controller, the plus and minus keys are another throttle handle. Moving to the engine control panel on the front dash, turn on the fuel booster pump by setting the fuel booster switch to the position by flipping over the switch. Select the left and right hand wheels to provide power to the engine ignition system by setting the ignition switch to low. On the fuel control panel, ensure that the left wing is selected for fuel consumption by checking that the fuel selector valve is set to the main tank engine position. Open the fuel shutoff valve by clicking on it to set it to the on position. Let's set the parking brake to make sure we remain stationary when the engine begins to pull. You may want to open the controls indicator by pressing right control plus enter to monitor the positions of your flight controls, including the brakes. Setting the
Right
parking
control
brake takes a few
enter.
steps. First, pull out and hold the parking brake handle by clicking and holding it.
Dobra. Pressing right control to be monitor position of the flight control. Dobra, mam. I Alt C.
Next, while continuing to hold the parking brake handle, fully press the brake pedals by holding down the
Brake
W key.
pedals by holding down V.
Continuing to hold the parking brake
Ah,
handle,
tu.
release the wheel brakes by releasing the W key.
Dobra. Jezu, gdzie ty jesteś? Leć! Continue the holding park brake handle or release the wheel brakes and releasing V key. Dobra.
Now release the parking brake handle to set the parking brake. If done correctly, the parking brake handle should remain in the pulled out position. The parking brake is not set. Try again to set the parking brake. Remember, the procedure is as follows. Pull and hold the parking brake handle. Press and release the wheel brakes W key. Release the parking brake handle.
Dobra.
We'll now move on to the
No,
electrical
dobra.
control panel on the right side of the cockpit. Set the battery switch to the up position to provide electrical power. Also, set the generator switch to the up position to prepare the generator to take over once the engine is running over 1500 to 1700 RPM.
Coś się zaczyna dziać.
Click and hold the primer switch on the engine control panel for about 1 second to feed some fuel to the engine. When starting in cold temperatures, up to 4 seconds of prime may be necessary.
Dobra.
We are now ready to attempt an engine start.
What?
To do so, first press and hold the starter switch to operate the starter and begin turning the engine. As the engine begins to catch, move the fuel mixture control lever on the throttle quadrant to the run position by right-clicking on it once. If you aren't able to start the engine successfully, return the fuel mixer lever to idle cutoff by left-clicking and repeat the process starting with priming the engine. Note, the engine starter can be easily overheated.
Aha, może się łatwo
Not be
przegrzać.
used for more than 4 20-second attempts to start, with 15-second intervals, followed by a 5-minute cooling off period.
No, no, no. Run. Które to jest na run? To jest teraz run? Nie. Tu. To jest run chyba, nie? Chwila, jeszcze raz. We are at the starter switch to operate the starter begin from move to the fuel mixture control lever and the throttle quad to the run position. Right clicking on in once. Czekajcie. Bo nie umiem... Nie wiem czemu nie mogę odpalić. Chwila. Spali się prędzej czy później. Co to jest? A, to jest jakieś do strzelania, to nie wiem. Instrukcję z PDF-a mam. Nie, nie mam. FBI już jedzie. Okej. Aha. Czekaj, coś się zacięło. Kamera mi się zacięła chyba. Nie mogę ruszać po ekranie. Moment. Ja pierdolę. Moment. F12. Pomogło? Pomogło. Dobra, czemu nie to nie wchodzi? Fuel, fuel, run. Na maksa primer przytrzymaj. Starter musi być włączony dłużej. Primer przez 4 sekundy. Nie wiem. Po lewej dźwignia do samej góry primer przez 4 i potem start. Czekaj. Po lewej dźwignia do samej góry. W sensie jaka dźwignia? Ta. Idle cut off. To? Dobra. Potem... primer przez kilka sekund. No i to. No nie wiem, no co? Poczekajcie chwilę, coś musiałem źle zrobić. No patrz, primer. Okej, coś tam podaje. Nie działa. Dobra, dźwignie jak już zaskoczy silnik. Ta, ale powiem wam, że... po prostu nie działa. Teraz jest coś z prądem. Nie wiem, słuchajcie. Czy się nie zbugowało? Ta dźwignia z... Czekaj. No, linki ze stacyjka powinna być po prawej stronie. Think mission is bugged. Training mission is bugged? I don't know. Czy ktoś ma instrukcję odpowiedzialną? Coś z prądem? Czemu kokpitu nie zamkniesz? Ta, no to co się zbugowało, Robert? No to co mam zrobić? No to powiedz. Jak mówisz, zbugowało KGW, no to powiedz mi, co się nie zbugowało, co jest tutaj błędem, to zaświecisz wtedy. Bo na razie to się nadajesz do ściągnięcia darmowej maszyny i wciśnięcia do przodu jechania. No. Messages pokaż. Ale zrobiłem tak, jak mi powiedział. Czemu kokpitu nie zamkniesz? Bo się nie da go zamknąć, bo w tej misji nie ma przewidzianego, że go zamknę, albo jeszcze mi nie powiedział, jak to zrobić. Nie da się, wiesz? Może dlatego. Do góry spójrz. Patrzę do góry, ale super. O! Lusterko se możesz zamknąć. Kurwa. Jak tym się... No już prawie odpaliłem samochód. Samolot. Co jest?! Przerwa. Nic się nie dzieje. Jest okej. Nie wytrzymam, słuchajcie. No i co ja mam zrobić, powiedz mi? Taxi, co to jest taxi? Takeoff, czyli startowanie, dawaj. Bo nie wytrzymam. To jest ciężkie, to jest ciężka. O, już działa. O, widzisz?
Press the space bar key to begin.
Jak się zmienia kamerę?
The 51 is generally very controllable in takeoff, but the powerful engine and large propeller spinning at the front do require careful use of the rudder in order to maintain a straight course down the runway. A right rudder trim of 5 to 6 degrees is standard takeoff setting, sufficient to maintain directional stability in takeoff run. A normal takeoff is required to takeoff mount, which is 64 inches in airplane thrust.
Co jest?
However, to minimize controllability,
Lecę! Dobre! Nic nie słyszę! Kurwa, bo silnik chodzi! Co? A, okej! Dobra, dobra! Wow! Czekaj, coś się dzieje! Co ty tam gadasz? Lecę nisko teraz. Lecę nisko. Nad wodą. Sanie wyłącz? Gdzie jest sanie? Pokaz slajdów? Czemu jest pokaz slajdów? Nie wiem. Może dlatego, że kurwa komputer mi się pali. Low. Nic nie zrobię teraz. Musiałbym wyjść do gry. Poczekajcie. Quit. Dobra, moment. Sekunda. W ustawieniach trzeba zmienić tylko system i trzeba zmienić, że damy sobie full screen i damy sobie V-Sync. Dobra, bo tu jest to wszystko na najlepsze. Hi. No co, no nie, to jest ok. SAO, nie SAO. A co, medium? No to damy medium, niech jest. Niech jest medium. Zobaczmy, co się stanie. Aha. Startuje nam grę, no zajebiście. Preload na 50 000 trzeba zmienić? Za duże pole radius trzeba było. Dobra. A, dystans renderowania detali. Oho. No to teraz to już wiem. Ty, dobra, zmieniłem, żeby nie ścinało. Zmieniłem, uwaga, czy wam to teraz będzie działać, czy nie? Trochę słabsza jakość jest, ale dobra. Potem to... Kurwa, to wygląda jak samolot karetka i od razu jadą po mnie. Oh. Dobra, poczekajcie jeszcze raz. Okej, czekaj. Jeszcze raz, inaczej, moment. Teraz już zwiększę to na high, ale tutaj ten radius zmniejszymy, tak? Ile ten radius zrobić? Preload radius na 50 000 wystarczy? No, badnych tyle jest. Daj z 15. Dobra, zrobimy tak. Dobra, ostatnia próba, słuchajcie. Już tu zmieniłem te ustawienia. Może się teraz uda. Uwaga! Okej. Dobra, ja wszystko wiem. Czemu on taki... O co chodzi? Powiedzcie mi, za duże obroty czy co? Że on tak cały się... Dobra, to jeszcze się dowiemy.
Welcome to the takeoff lesson. Press the spacebar key to begin. The 51 is generally very controllable in takeoff, but the powerful engine and large propellers spinning at the front do require careful use of the rudder in order to maintain a straight course down the runway. A right rudder trim of 5 to 6 degrees is a standard takeoff setting and is usually sufficient to maintain directional stability in the takeoff run. A normal takeoff is performed at takeoff power, which is 61 inches of manifold pressure at 3,000 RPM. However, to minimize controllability issues while practicing, we will take off at a reduced power setting of about 50 inches of manifold pressure. Press the spacebar key to proceed. Your primary instrument during the takeoff is the left side of the instrument and the manifold pressure on the right side. Once in the air,
Dobra.
Posłucham
do końca, gadaj. No. No.
The 51 is generally very controllable in takeoff, but the powerful engine and large propeller spinning at the front do require careful use
Mr. Koka,
in
dzięki.
order to maintain a straight course down the runway.
No.
A right rudder trim of 5 to 6 degrees is a standard takeoff setting and is usually sufficient to maintain directional stability in the takeoff run.
Co jest?
A normal takeoff is performed at takeoff power, which is 61 inches of manifold pressure at 3,000 RPM. However, to minimize controllability issues while practicing, we will take off at a reduced power setting of about 50 inches of manifold pressure. Press the spacebar key to proceed.
No.
Your primary instruments during the takeoff run will be the airspeed indicator on the left side of the instrument panel and the manifold pressure indicator on the right side. Once in the air, we will use the turn indicator and the rate of climb indicator to maintain a desired flight path. Press the spacebar key to proceed. The first key element of a successful takeoff is a gradual onset of power. You cannot just slam the throttle forward. The torque effects of a sudden burst of power are very likely to run you off the runway and into the grass with devastating results. The other key element is the tail lift. As the aircraft accelerates toward 100 miles per hour, the tail will lift itself off the ground, unless held down.
No ja nie zrobię tego nigdy. Czekajcie. No bo ktoś mi powiedział, żeby W nacisnąć, no.
The 51 is generally very controllable in takeoff, but the powerful engine and large propeller spinning at the front do require careful use of the rudder in order to maintain a straight course down the runway. A right rudder trim of 5 to 6 degrees is a standard takeoff setting and is usually sufficient to maintain directional stability in the takeoff run. A normal takeoff is performed at takeoff power, which is 61 inches of manifold pressure.
No nie mam takiego odzorowania w MFS-ie, no.
However, to minimize controllability issues while practicing, We will take off at a reduced power setting of about 50 inches of manifold pressure. Press the spacebar key to proceed. Your primary instruments during the takeoff run will be the airspeed indicator on the left side of the instrument panel and the manifold pressure indicator on the right side. Once in the air, we will use the turn indicator and the rate of climb indicator to maintain a desired flight path. Press the spacebar key to proceed. The first key element of a successful takeoff is a gradual onset of power. You cannot just slam the throttle forward. The torque effects of a sudden burst of power are very likely to run you off the runway and into the grass with devastating results. The other key element is the tail lift. As the aircraft accelerates toward 100 miles per hour, the tail will lift itself off the ground, unless held down with some stick back pressure. You can perform a takeoff without a tail lift by simply holding the stick back to maintain a 3-point attitude until the plane flies itself off the ground. Most pilots, however, prefer to let the tail rise up to continue accelerating while running on the front wheels before lifting off into the air. Press the spacebar key to proceed. The takeoff starts with the stick held back to keep the tail wheel locked for a controlled ground run. To perform a tail lift, neutralize the stick as speed approaches 100 miles per hour. Be careful to avoid lifting the tail too early by pushing the stick forward. The changes in pitch angles occurring during the tail lift cause significant directional instability, which is more difficult to control at slower speeds. Careful rudder input will be required to maintain heading as the tail lifts. You may need to alternate a bit of right and left rudder input before stabilizing for the liftoff. Press the spacebar key to proceed. Flaps are not used in a normal takeoff. 15 to 20 degrees of down flaps are used when a minimum run takeoff is required. Press right control plus enter to open the controls indicator so you can monitor the position of your flight controls. To prepare for the takeoff run, set the rudder trim to about 5 degrees right. Click and drag the rudder trim tab control wheel.
Ale który to jest? Tu. To dlatego mi się to nie udawało.
On the throttle quadrant, make sure the RPM lever is set all the way forward to increase. If not, press and hold the page up key to set it. Hold down the wheel brakes using the W key. Using the numpad plus and minus keys, control the throttle to set the manifold pressure to about 30 inches. Somewhat down and neutral to keep the tail wheel locked. Whenever you're ready, release the wheel brakes to begin the takeoff run. Use the rudder or CNX keys to maintain your heading down the runway. That will allow power to set about 50 inches of manifold pressure.
Jak ja wystartuję?
Welcome to the takeoff lesson.
Dobra, zamknij ryj.
Press the space bar.
Zamknij ryj! Patrz ty teraz. Zaraz się rozpadnę. O kur... Ta gra jest niesamowita. Aha, yes. Jeszcze raz.
Welcome to the takeoff lesson.
Ale było
Press
dobrze.
the space bar key to begin.
Dawaj klapy większe. Tyle, 10. A czekaj, co to jest za trimmer w ogóle? To jest unoszenie, nie? Kurwa, zrestartowałem se.
Welcome to the takeoff lesson. Press the spacebar key to begin.
O! Polecę z otwartym, szyberdachem polecę. Let's go. Zimny łokieć. Dzięki! Witam, witam. Ale się trzęsie. Pociągnij czerwoną dźwignię po prawej. Czekaj. Nie mogę teraz, bo muszę do góry trzymać. Co to za dźwignia? Co to jest? Ale szyberdach! Zimny łakieć! Kabriolet! Ale wieje! Ale piszczy! Ja wyląduj! Dobra, ląduję. Idę lądować. Dobra, idę lądować. Ja klapy powinienem zmniejszyć, ale ja nie umiem trimmerem przy locie. Ja powinienem zrzucić trimmer, a nie, trimmer jest ok, flapsy. Cicho. Nie, ja muszę inaczej to zrobić. Ej, ja chyba lecę w ścianę niewidzialną. Ja pod wiatr chyba wieję. Co jest? Jakie przeciągnięcie, co jest? Urła! W prawo, w prawo! O! Dobra, dobra. Dobra, za mocno. Nie, no to tak się nie podchodzi do lądowania. Ja muszę większy zrobić na drugi krąg. F prostuje klapy, shift do lądowania. F prostuje klapy. Co ty gadasz? Pokaż. Shift. Okej. Dobra. Teraz już łatwiej lecimy, dobra. Gra za głośno. Wszystko jest dobrze, tylko po prostu wiatr wieje. Słyszycie mnie? Dobra, uspokójcie się teraz. Uwaga! Przystąpimy do lądowania! O kurwa! Nie, bokiem zejdę, to nie. Zabraknie pasa! Jeszcze raz, jeszcze jedno podejście. Jeszcze jedno. Większy kręg. Nie wyj, nie piszcz! Jezu, jak ten silnik już piszczy, on już chce wylądować. Zrób beczkę. Oj, byczku, nie, boję się. Boję się. Mogę wypaść, bo szybę mam. Kurwa. Za wysoko, wiem. Wiem, ale podejdę, to jest moje. Jest mój, jest mój. Jest mój. Spokojnie, on się ustabilizuje. Jak gospodarka w Polsce. Pa, troszkę trochę w lewo, zaraz wejdę, zaraz. O. Ja jebie. Ta gra jest za ciężka.